Anybody that says we're going to become a nation of renters and you're going to be happy is an idiot.
Breaking news is we've just learned that Warren Buffett and his company, Berkshire Hathaway, have recently sold $7 billion worth of shares to the second largest bank in America, which is Bank of America. So not only are they holding $285 billion in cash right now, and we're going to go under the hood and we're going to ask questions like, why are they holding that much cash? I have our community wizard, community expert, Mitch Wexler here to break that down, to go under the hood. We're also going to ask why the system wants 144 million households to be broke. We're going to listen to Warren Buffett. We're going to listen to Ben Bernanke, and also obviously Mitch Wexler. Sir, happy Saturday evening. How are you?
Good. It's all good. We're working away, and we have a couple more things in the hopper that shortly we'll be able to announce.
Yeah, I'm excited. We got some amazing stuff going on behind the scenes. Looking forward to walking the viewers down that journey with us, Mitch. So let's get started right now, brother. I'm going to jump into an article from Zero Hedge just to figure out what's going on right now. Very good article. Zero Hedge, this came out Friday, so we're a little bit behind the ball, but this is insane, guys. Listen, this guy's the elite. Warren Buffett is one of the most powerful men in the world. So when he does stuff like this, I think we should pay attention. Name of this article is Warren Buffett's Bank of America, and they've coined this, Mitch, new phrase, dumpathon. So they're currently involved in a dump-a-thon, and they're talking about the stock. Okay, that's what they're dumping. Nears $7 billion as questions swirl as to why. Why is he doing this? Again, $7 billion. Let's go down here. I just want to read a couple bullet points here, and then we'll move on to Mitch. In the latest round of transactions disclosed in a regulatory filing Thursday, his Berkshire Hathaway company liquidated $760 million of stock since Tuesday. Still, Berkshire remains Bank of America's top shareholder with roughly a 11% stake, valued at $34.7 billion. I'm pretty sure they're doing some closed-door meetings, Mitch, because that company can end Bank of America. This goes on. If Berkshire keeps selling, its stake in the second largest U.S. bank could soon slide below the 10% regulatory threshold that requires his conglomerate to disclose transactions within a few days. Once he controls less than that, Buffett may wait weeks to reveal transactions, typically offering snapshots after every quarter. The article goes on, Mitch, again, 11% stake. They still got $34.7 billion. A lot of people are wondering what's up with the abrupt selling. Just want to read this last part here on the bottom. As previously noted, Buffett could be dumping for several reasons. If that's due to a looming recession, probably, yeah, recession threats and the Federal Reserve's interest rate cutting cycle. Well, wait a minute. Rates would be cut and he would be worried about that? Why would he be worried about that? Well, because rate cuts mean the economy's not doing good. Hopefully the viewers got that by now, which could begin in just a few weeks. Or perhaps the 94-year-old billionaire has increased cash reserve to record levels because of elevated stock valuations amid the artificial intelligence bubble. Mitch, I got a couple questions for you, buddy, and maybe you can help articulate this for the viewers and I. Again, we're going to end with solution. Part of solution is awareness. So let's start with the awareness. Mitch, any ideas whatsoever why, one of the most powerful men in the world, Warren Buffett and his company, has roughly $285 billion in cash? And what can that tell the American consumer?
Well, I think it was about 10 days ago when you and I did a video, and I said that Bank of America stock would start going down when the rest of the market started going down. And Warren Buffett is no fool. I even said then that he would be shopping. So he will go what he calls elephant shopping. So he's got something in mind, and or he's assembling massive mountains of cash to eventually go shopping when the notes or the bonds that he can pick off at pennies on the dollar start to come into play. With regard to his holdings of the banks, he's jettisoning most of them, including Wells Fargo. So the reasons why are pretty well everything you enumerated in that last paragraph, except for artificial intelligence. That shows that the person who wrote the article hasn't got a clue what they're talking about. AI has nothing to do with this. If you understand Warren Buffett's methods, he doesn't even participate in anything having to do with AI. It's straight up math. And he sees something that's out there. And I've said we are in a recession. He knows it. Everybody that's been watching these videos now knows it. The mainstream media is completely blind and or complicit in creating the narrative. It's you pick your poison. So that's what Warren Buffett is doing.
Mitch, do you think that, his company alone could, if they sold all of the remaining shares, $34 billion worth, do you think that that company alone could end Bank of America to, potentially set a chain of events in motion that would collapse that bank? Do they have that power?
Well, it would cause a lot of problems. Technically, it couldn't end it because other shareholders would be there in theory. However, if you start looking at the tier one capital, and that's where the truth comes in, then it becomes an issue of, can Bank of America raise enough money to maintain a tier one capital level? And that's yet to be determined. I haven't done the analysis on it, but you end up again with a cumulative effect when somebody is leaving the fray of that size. That could start a dumpster fire.
Okay. I want to move on and I want to listen to a video. It's 1 minute long. It's from Warren Buffett. It's from about a year ago. And, I think he's brilliant, but he's, just listen to what he has to say.
I do not think I could run the Fed as well as Jay Powell's run. I think Jay Powell has been a terrific, and part of the job, look at Paul Volcker back in the 1980s. I mean, people were sending him, he needed Secret Service protection and everything else. But in the end, he felt his responsibility was to do the right thing at the Fed, and he didn't give a damn about what anybody wrote about him or anything else. And I think that he's one of my heroes, and I think he's one of Jay Powell's heroes. And I think Jay Powell did the same thing actually in March of 2020 when we went into the pandemic. I think at the annual meeting that year, I said, that he was a hero and he is a hero. And you have to act, and you have to act on insufficient information, and you've got an ultimate responsibility to the American public. It doesn't mean you can stop recessions. It doesn't mean that you can turn bad loans into good loans or anything else. But it does mean that you got to keep the system working.
Keep the system working on fraud. Now, I know he's elite. Okay, I know he's probably saying those things, Mitch, because the Federal Reserve probably is going to bail him out since he is an elite. But can you talk about what are your thoughts on those statements? Because to me, I don't like Jerome Powell or the Fed.
Well, as I have said multiple times, I believe the doors of the Fed should be chained shut. They've never been on the right side of a decision since the day they were created. Now, Warren Buffett's position is one of maintaining stability throughout the system. But as we've seen through this series of videos, there is no stability left in the system. When you look at the parabolic debt levels, Warren Buffett's no fool. There's a reason why he's going into cash and going into cash heavy. This is a big deal. So the reality is that, yes, on one hand, he's speaking his book. On the other hand, he's clearly very sincere about what he's saying. The problem is it ignores the ramifications of where we are right now today. When you have 37% of the population that cannot afford the roof over their head and or they will go bankrupt, you have 67%, give or take, of the population, household population, that cannot afford whatever the median home price is in their geographic vicinity. These are real numbers. These are irrefutable numbers. And if I would ever had the chance to have a conversation with Warren Buffett, I would truly appreciate it. I'm a huge fan. I understand his math. I understand exactly how he's done it. I've read pretty well every book, but you can't get away from the underlying numbers and you can't get away from the debt. So technically we're kind of two sides of the same coin. We're looking at the same information, except he is a proverbial 1,600-pound gorilla. So he has no choice but to try and maintain calm. Whereas I, on the other hand, and everybody we're talking to are at the other end of the spectrum saying, you're burning the house down and you've got to stop.
And I'm going to throw those parabolic charts up when we go in to talk about why the system wants to, bankrupt 144 million households. But I want to stop a minute and I want to recognize that viewers want solution. And so when we talk to maybe normal everyday Americans and we step away from what we just said and say, okay, well, what can we do with this? What's the solution here? Now, I feel like I'm a normal American, Mitch, and let me tell you what I got from this story, and let me tell you what it means to me. And if you can, good thought exercise, tell me whether or not my mindset is aiming towards the right direction. I think what this tells me is the system's broke. It's overvalued. If I, as just a normal consumer, I don't have a lot of money. If I invest in the markets, it's very risky. It's very volatile. There's a lot of other places I may want to put my money. And I think that the solution may be just to reallocate my money. If I'm putting money in a pension plan, maybe I put it into something else. But the solution to me, Mitch, is safety. Switching to cash, maybe T-bills, maybe even metals. But I'm all about safety and increasing my insights, understanding what's going on in the market, understanding that one of the most powerful people in the world is not even investing in the markets. And those insights give me patience. And I feel like I'm in a good spot. I feel like I'm patient. I feel like there's not a lot I can do. That's okay, but I'm aware. And that's where I'm at. What do you think about that?
I think mom and pop who are believing that they can get into the market and make money is a huge mistake. You can't do what you don't understand. You can't follow the Warren Buffetts of the world. You can't follow the JP Morgan traders of the world. It can't be done. You're wasting your time. Now, if you say, well, I'm going to do this over the next 3 or 4 years and I'm going to poke around with $50 a week and I want to learn, that's perfectly fine. However, put it back into context. One of the people that was very instrumental in arranging these meetings for me on Saturday is sitting on a massive amount of cash. And that became part of the conversation. So he has other investors under the hood with him. And just like me, he's been sitting still for almost 2 years, and it takes a massive amount of patience. But just like me, he hasn't been able to find an asymmetric return, and neither one of us want to play in the market. Now, he's not a developer, he's a buyer, he's an acquirer. So he's got the cash, he is able to acquire very quickly. But the reality is the asymmetric return isn't there, and you're still seeing 5 and 6 cap deals, which means 5% all rate of return on all cash or 6% all rate of return on all cash. And that's not an asymmetric return. And then if you look in the bonds, given what we've already discussed at the municipal level and the school level, what bonds do you think you're going to play in? And you say, well, I'm part of a pension fund. Well, we've already figured out that the pension funds, i.e. CalPERS, the average rate of return on a pension fund is only between 6 and 7%. In other words, it's getting harder and harder to find any place to hide. So it takes a certain mindset to be able to say, I'm going to hide and I'm going to put my money here where it's secure. Mom and pop aren't capable of that. They're not capable of understanding. So let's look at a real rate of return. If you say, something, I've got $2,400 extra, I'm going to reduce my mortgage by $200 per month. You understand that that's a real rate of return on your money? The faster you pay off your mortgage, that is true amortization because you're paying it in advance of your amortization schedule. That's a real qualified, quantified rate of return. You can do that. And it's safe because it's your mortgage. It's not going to get any safer than that. You're in control. If you're not spending money and spending less money, then you have that money to apply to your mortgage, which is to the benefit of you and your family. That works all day long. So it's a question of understanding the mathematics under the hood.
I like that. So pay my mortgage down faster, potentially add that into my toolbox. Mitch, you are gifted at how life works, my friend, and how to help people and how to articulate that. Thank you. I want to move on. To me, Mitch, the system's not you. Mainstream's not you. The elites aren't you. The financial advisors aren't you. Realtors, all these people aren't you. It seems like they don't want us to know the truth. They want us to spend to the end. And the system has put us in a situation to where 144 million households are becoming broke. The system is breaking people. And one of the charts that you've sent me, and I want to show the viewers one more time, is really showing how parabolic and out of control the Federal Reserve and government really has been, and how that's really bankrupting our children. Here's the national debt, raw inflation adjusted. Let me put us to the left here. You guys see after the gold standard, things really kind of went out of control. Mid to early 80s really got out of control, and it just kept getting out of control. Here's the GFC right here, okay, right where my arrow's at. I mean, look at this. This is when Keynesian economics took over, and I'm going to show you guys Operation Twist. But Mitch, my gosh, we got to still pay for this. This is debt outstanding, you guys. This is the reverse amortization schedule. At least when we're paying an amortization schedule, the debt amount goes down. This does not go down. Remember the 2.2 trillion CARES Act? Remember the 1.9 trillion American Rescue Act? How do they rescue Americans there? How were Americans rescued? By bailing out banks, by bailing out the system. 1.9 trillion. And that's not all. This is national debt as a percentage. So the debt as a percentage of GDP. You see the same things here. You see periods of time, Mitch, where it slows down. Even look, 1965, it went down, but it's just, my gosh, I don't know how it's possible for us as Americans to afford this type of reckless debt spending. And the problem is they can just keep printing money. They got it pretty bad. They're like a bunch of teenagers that just got credit cards that think they don't have to pay that money back. But the reality is mom and pop, we're paying that money back. We're paying that money back big. Can you go into what we just looked at and how those parabolic charts are actually putting to be? I know you've done the math on this, but I mean, realistically, that affects 144 million households. Mitch, can you go into that a little bit, sir?
Yeah, it's more than 144 million. The truth of the matter is that's just at the single family houses. But in reality, this touches every single real estate taxpayer and, frankly, every single taxpayer. So if you want to go back to that first chart that was parabolic, I want to show everybody something. It says President Bush signs $700 billion troubled asset relief program.
Yes.
And you see just before it starts to move up. So there's a little point just below that. Okay, so that technically is a double top of the prior pivot point. Well, interestingly enough, because I was looking at this the other day, if you take where we are today and you take 0.618%, which is a Fibonacci number, it ends right there at that double top. So the double top is where President Clinton signs the Deficit Reduction Act. It broke the double top. Yep, see the dot right there. If you move over, horizontal line, just keep moving over. Yep, just keep moving over. Bingo, right there on that point. Okay? When it broke that, isn't it interesting? From today's position down to that, right where your arrow is a 0.618% reduction. That's more than likely where it's going to pull back. Think of the economic damage that will occur if we don't get in front of that. So all this nonsense that they've created and all this fraud that they've created straight across the board has a very high probability of ending right back at that position. Now, let's discuss Warren Buffett again for a second. Look at the position he's getting out of Bank of America. Look at it on a chart and then draw a 0.618% reduction. And that'll tell you exactly why he's getting out. And he'll tell you he's not a chart reader. But the reality is he does understand price to earnings ratios. He does understand cost per employee revenue. So you have expenses per employee, revenue per employee. He saw firsthand what Wells Fargo had done. One of the reasons why he's jettisoning. He's been jettisoning very slowly out of Wells Fargo so as not to rock the boat. But the reality is that Wells Fargo is a criminal organization. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been fined and being paid billions of dollars to get out of the hot mess that they created. So these banks aren't a panacea under any definition. Now, if you're Warren Buffett, you say, well, you know something? I'll pull my cash out. I wait till they go broke. And I go back in and buy a bank at 5 cents on the dollar. Okay, there's your asymmetric return. We're good. In other words, like I said, he's going shopping for elephants.
You know, and we're supposed to have, you know, during recession, through recession, we're supposed to have the ability to find deals of our dreams. And it's looking like that. But the problem is, if you're not ahead of this, you're going to be behind it. And to be behind it when the system runs you over, I've been run over by the system. Bankruptcy, foreclosure, repo, 6-digit tax lien, had to run out the statute of limitations, followed me around for 9 years. Just plan ahead. And Mitch.
Well, I want to go back on one point.
Go ahead. Yeah.
You mentioned printing.
Yes.
The problem with printing is that you create quantitative easing. Quantitative easing is inflation. You keep printing, you will create hyperinflation. And either way, it's a tax, because the truth of the matter is you will need a bucket of money to go buy a loaf of bread. You cannot print in perpetuity, because the US government will lose all credibility, not just in the United States, but globally. You will crush the US dollar. And again, these things can be resolved. It will be painful, there's no doubt about it, but better to be resolved in a controllable manner than be part of a demolition team, because that's the end result.
And I'm going to get to a solution to the viewers. Don't worry, but I got to talk about 2012, Mitch. I got to pull up a video from Ben Bernanke, because Operation Twist, to me, is when like it just got so out of control with the Keynesian money printing, 0% interest rates. I mean, this is a video, okay? I want the viewers to understand. This is Ben Bernanke. It's only 1 minute long in 2012. People are like, well, who cares? It's 2012. Yeah, exactly. What happened in nothing happened in 2012, except they robbed us in our sleep with a program called Operation Twist. Mitch, listen to this.
Interest rates are quite low, and they're being pushed down more by safe haven flows and other factors. That being said, I think we can lower interest rates more. But beyond that, Operation Twist and asset purchases work also through other channels, in particular by acquiring securities in the market and bringing them onto the Fed's balance sheet. We essentially induce investors to move into substitute securities. So, for example, an investor who sells a Treasury security to the Fed may end up buying a corporate bond instead. And so the effect will be to lower corporate bond rates and corporate spreads. Or a bank may, having sold its Treasury securities, may decide to make a loan instead. So it's not just the effect on the long-term interest rate, but there's a broader set of effects that feed through other asset prices, other interest rates, other spreads, and provide a broader ease in financial conditions, which is supportive to the economy.
Should they have let us just stay in recession? I mean, can you just break that video down on Operation Twist?
You know, if I was going to court, that would be one hell of a clip to play, because that literally just makes our case on everything we've been saying. A, it shows that they actually have something called the plunge protection team. B, they're actually inducing investors to come into the market because they're the buyers of the plunge protection team. So if you're inducing buyers, well, then that's not natural, and that's financially engineering human nature. A, so that put that in one bracket. And then B, well, look at the chart where we currently are with 160 some odd $1 trillion worth of debt. In other words, Bernanke and Powell, and frankly, every other Fed agent really since the 70s, have truly effed this up beyond belief. They cannot possibly stand there and say, well, we didn't know what we were doing. Well, okay, so if you didn't know what you were doing, then why did you have a job? And why did you take real estate taxpayer money? And why did you take federal dollars, right? Because that's how your paycheck comes in. So the truth of the matter is, you're a theoretical professor that knows nothing about reality. You truly don't understand the math under the hood. Therefore, you had a job. What was your job? Well, your job was to be a grifter. You didn't produce anything. You didn't add any value to the system. So what you did is you took money from those who produce to put it in your pocket because you're a grifter. That's the reality.
One more thing, all right, and then we'll end this out. I don't even know if you knew I was going to have this chart, but back to unfunded liabilities. It was seeming to me that money should have gone to the retired, the people that we've already promised we're going to take care of. The money got sent to the banks and to the Federal Reserve. And to the viewers, I want to get your last take on this, Mitch. 4 layers of massive federal debt and liabilities. This is why my children are bankrupt. This is why I am struggling to survive versus thriving. And again, this is only to 2023, Mitch. So this isn't even everything. I just got it because it's a nice chart. I got it. It's simple to understand. Current national debt, 34 trillion. Unfunded obligations, 78 trillion. That's probably not true. Social Security, Medicare, 105 trillion. Unfunded liabilities, it's a huge problem. You've waken me up to the unfunded liabilities, Mitch. You've waken me up to the fact that California, yeah, Texas, we see it. Most pensions are absolutely bankrupt. Most pensions, literally, if all of the people want their money out of school, just they want to pull that money out of that pension, it's bankrupt. Can you go into, what do you believe? Because we've been talking about unfunded liabilities. What is a solution for the United States government here? How would you say you were president, Mitch, or even Jerome Powell, say you were both, say you were all of them. We fired everyone. And 23,000 employees of the Federal Reserve. What does Mitch Wexler do to first and foremost make sure that those unfunded liabilities are paid and our people on Social Security, our people that are retired, are taken care of?
Well, okay. So Jerome Powell is probably a very nice guy, and Bernanke is also a very nice guy, but they live in a theoretical world. And what you just showed in that chart, isn't true, because it's actually worse than that. We've been able to calculate it out, give or take, around somewhere between 147 and 163 trillion, as recently as 30 days ago. But that's not the point. The point of the matter is they had a job, but when you understand what the job was, it was merely to backstop the banks. The problem by backstopping the banks and not letting the natural economic market cycle work is, in fact, the chart you just showed. You can say it's 130 trillion, 160 trillion. It doesn't matter. There's no money to pay it back. So the answer to your question is, what would you do? There are multiple layers of grifter fraud. People who have jobs that have no business having jobs in those facilities. When you're living in a theoretical world and the rest of us are living in a real world where mortgages have to be paid, food has to be put on the table, we've got a problem. So all of those entities that are feeding at the trough by stealing taxpayer money, in reality, they have to be either shut down and or put to a different use under a different set of guidelines. So there's things that can be done, but that's kind of on the small scale. The bigger scale to fix the problem is eliminating the real estate taxes in and of themselves in favor of a uniform state's sales tax. Put everybody on the same plane. This is relatively easy to do because the infrastructure for sales tax does exist. There are ways to fix this and fix it fast. Yes, there will be pain. However, better to be a little bit of pain than a demolition derby.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. So it sounds like, on top of restructuring some things, sounds like we need this to bust. We need this economy to crash for a bit, and then we need to rebuild and rebound together. I hope that there's not too much corruption, to prevent that from happening, Mitch. Really appreciate your time. Really appreciate you working like a maniac. Mitch works Monday through Sunday. I don't know how, I think 18 hours a day. I don't even know anymore, Mitch. Definitely appreciate you, man. There's a lot of people that are discouraged, saying things like, oh, we're going to be a nation of renters and be happy. And, when I hear that, it makes me roll my eyes, because that's just the first part. That's just the awareness. The action is to make sure you're not one of those people. These videos are to make sure you are not stuck renting, that you are aware. And so we have step 1 in the description: sign the petition, take 10 seconds. Step 2, learn how to fight property taxes.
Anybody that says we're going to become a nation of renters and you're going to be happy is an idiot, right? Because what they're really doing is preaching a mainstream narrative. Now, let's talk about the math under the hood. When you say, well, we're going to be a nation of renters, okay, so you have people that work for the government, by way of example. Some have really good jobs, $250,000 a year. But if you're a nation of renters and you can't even afford a mortgage, where is the money going to come from to pay these government salaries, to pay the salaries of the grifters? The answer is it isn't. This is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Get on board, fix the problem, or we will end up in a demolition derby, and it will affect every government job that's out there because you will have a full-scale civil war. This is what you're heading to. The idea that you're going to make a nation of renters? Are you freaking crazy? That's Venezuela in the United States, raised to the power of 5. See, the narrative is completely false. It's insanity. And therein lies the problem. You want to start a civil war, keep going. Don't fix this problem. Rome is burning, and you idiots lit the fire. All we're trying to do, I don't want this market to crash. Believe me, I'm the last guy that wants to see this thing crash. Because, yeah, we'll make money. But the reality is, I don't want to make money that way because I know the devastation that'll be left behind.
Yes, and it is going to be devastating. And the thing that I keep thinking about, Mitch, is how unnecessary it really is. It's so unnecessary, so much fat in the middle. But you know what, man? We're at least trying. You know, we're trying. We're making the videos. We're making the courses. You guys, don't forget that. Go to the video description. Check out those links. We have a whole bunch. We're not just talking. We are also walking the walk. And we are, I don't know about Mitch. I'm begging you to follow us, please. To follow us, please. The only thing that I ask you in return, I don't ask for any money. I just ask for you to empower yourself, please. And you guys, other than that, happy Saturday evening. Mitch, thank you once again for your time. If you guys are out there living life, if you guys are out there investing in real estate, you guys already know we wish you luck and we hope you win.